Welcome to the Frictionless Innkeeper podcast series. Our show is brought to you by the Frictionless Guest app, which allows innkeepers to provide guests with their recommendations of the best local places to eat, play, and shop during their stay. The Frictionless Guest app is accessible through all mobile and desktop devices, and you can learn more about it by visiting frictionlessguest.com. Once again, that's frictionlessguest.com. I'm Matt Langen, and I'll be joined by Steve Short, the founder and CEO of the Frictionless Guest app. And for this episode of the Frictionless Innkeeper podcast, we are speaking with Christa Freeland, who is an entrepreneur, former tech venture studio executive, and the manager of the founder house Adina. Based in Austin, Texas, this inn recently converted into being a co-working and co-living space for entrepreneurs. And this is actually part one of a two-part podcast series. In this first episode, Christa will be discussing this new innkeeping shift to co-working in the face of the COVID-19 pandemic. And in part two, she will be providing the millennial perspective when it comes to travel and much more. And Christa and Steve, how you both doing today?
Great. Yeah. Thank you so much. So happy to be here with y'all today.
Excellent. Great to have you.
Digitally.
How you doing? Digitally. Right. How are you, Steve?
Doing well, Matt. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. And thanks, Christa, for coming on. Appreciate it.
Awesome. All right, let's kick it off. So, Christa, let's start at the top. You have a very interesting background as an entrepreneur and a former executive at a venture studio. And yeah, I won't give it all away, but yeah, go ahead and tell us more about yourself and we'll start there.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks so much. Well, I have been with the tech venture studio in downtown Austin, Texas for about 7 years and kind of changed roles every couple of years. I started just doing go-to-market plans, marketing, and, content stuff for each of the companies in our portfolio. We have like a small portfolio where there's like multiple companies under one roof type of deal. And I've also launched concepts and special projects out of the venture studio a couple of times. We've done like a pop-up restaurant co-working sort of deal where we were operating out of a handful of restaurants all around Austin. When the restaurant wasn't busy during the day, we would actually turn the space into like a productive co-working operation. And so I'm really interested in how to use things resourcefully, space, how to use time, and just be really creative with what we have. And I feel like that's where, especially during COVID times, we need to get really creative, and that will be the thing that will keep us afloat. And so, so that's pretty much my background, and mostly working in tech though, and digital campaigns. And I was actually working with the mayor of Austin for his re-election campaign. And that was in 2018, and have done some political consulting work on like new media, new digital strategy for mayors. So also did work with the Fort Worth mayor as well. So I'm into, what's going on with the trends and testing out new concepts and stuff like that. And yeah, it's definitely an exciting time to be an entrepreneur and testing out new concepts. So.
Yeah, that's great. And speaking of a new concept, Founder House Adina, I think we found this just through our normal Google News searches about what's happening out there in the innkeeping space. And this one really popped up and caught our attention. It's a beautiful property, number one, but if you don't mind, tell us about how the idea came about to turn it into a co-working and co-living space for entrepreneurs.
Yeah, well, my mentor who introduced me to the mayor's campaign here in Austin, she's one of the investors also in the venture studio. So I got to know her a couple of years ago that way. She's been really awesome to work with and an amazing and positive force in my career and like in my life. And so back when South by Southwest was supposed to happen in March of this year, South by Southwest is like one of the biggest festival events. Usually it lasts for like pretty much the whole month, and a ton of businesses get taken over, and the city kind of turns into like another city. There's like a lot of parties and just like tons of people coming in to enjoy the event, and it's like a huge conference, and live music and film and everything. Well, my mentor, she actually owns a boutique hotel in downtown Austin, and they were going to launch right with South by Southwest, and they had, full bookings and were just, ready to go. And everyone, especially in downtown, the businesses make a ton of money. I mean, I think I read somewhere, like, if you're open for the full month of March and then some a little bit before and some people stay after, a lot of people can float themselves the entire year because strictly off the business that they do during South by Southwest. But I mean, as we know, the story, all the businesses were forced to close and there was no money. I think the hotel itself had like one guest that came very early, and we had to, by the way, her name is Ying McGuire, is one of the owners and partners of the hotel. Ying told me something like they had to return everyone else's money. They lost, a ton of money. So I had actually just moved into a place downtown, it's Amley on 2nd, which is right by the W, and is like a hot spot for just like all the events and a lot of activity going on during South by Southwest. And so it just felt like such a ghost town. And I mean, as you know, it was just like such a sad and shocking, crazy time. I was like, hey, that would actually be kind of cool if we could create our own little bubble or something of startup founders, because we still have to continue growing and building businesses. We just have to get creative. And in a time when we all need to be very careful and health conscious about everything that we do, I just thought it'd be great to do like an MBA bubble or something, but for entrepreneurs in Austin. And so I pitched the idea to her because she had a bunch of empty rooms, and I was like, look, I can exit my lease early. I liked the idea of being in a controlled, safe environment, because living in a high rise, in order to go anywhere or get some food or anything, you get on the elevator and there's like tons of people, and it's just like, I don't know, it's just not that safe. But yeah, so she liked the idea and she spoke with the rest of her business partners about it, and I made the jump and early move back in May. May 1st was when I moved in, and I was just kind of through word of mouth telling my startup friends and network here in town about this new concept, because it's something that I'd never heard of in a like official way. I've heard of like a house that has like a bunch of startup people living in there, but there was no like official kind of system or anything like that. And so that's pretty much where we're at today. We've had now 4 people come live, and there's only actually 13 units. And so even still, we'll have, as tourism starts to come back a little bit, I mean, it's not like what we expected in Austin. A ton of people come here for the summer and stuff like that. Well, we do have some people, mostly that do staycation or something, who are coming in from San Antonio or Dallas or Houston. And so the hotel still kind of operates, with guests as well, not just like residents. So that's pretty much where we're at today. And we're just, learning as we're going. And it's obviously a highly entrepreneurial environment. And I don't know, it's kind of cool. It's like a unique situation. We know that it's a temporary thing. So I'm just like very grateful and happy to be here.
That's awesome. It sounds like a really fun environment there. What's the overall vibe like with the other 4 tenants that are there? Do you all have coffees in the main room, share ideas, collaborate, all that kind of good stuff?
Well, it's really cool. Well, the guy who lives across the hallway from me, he has a startup. I think he's fundraising for, it's like a photography type startup. And it's really great to like have conversations with him. He kind of like gets it, so we've done like a founder house type, and founder house is the name of the concept, the kind of like pop-up co-living entrepreneurial type of concept. So yeah, we've done a founder house. We do founder house little get-togethers so we can get to know each other. And I learned so much from everyone. I really enjoy those kind of things. And the owner will come in, and she's actually a really fantastic cook too. So And then sometimes I like to go up on the roof, and it's not like a legit like roof deck or anything like that, but we'll just go up there, which kind of makes it like more fun. We just need to be really careful, but we'll just go up there with like a beer or something, and you can see the skyline of downtown Austin, which is really great. I mean, we're still technically downtown, but we're like a couple blocks away from the Capitol. And so we're surrounded by a bunch of like law offices, and it ends up being really quiet and stuff too, which I guess it's pretty quiet everywhere these days. But yeah, I really like it. And there's a young lady who lives in the floor below me, and she, you know, she's someone who actually worked at one of the startups that I was with. So yeah, it's just kind of cool. And, you know, I've actually lived alone for 7 or so years. And I think now in this time, I kind of want to be around others. And, you know, as long as we're operating in a safe way, yeah, I think it's a good time to like be able to lean on people. We need to support each other. So
yeah, that's great stuff. That's great stuff. Steve, I'll pass the baton over to you. I'm sure you have plenty of questions for Christa.
No need to pass it, Matt. I'm going to take it anyway when I get a chance. Okay. So, Christa, just out of curiosity, you mentioned, I guess, Ying McGuire, the owner, your mentor. So does she have another property that she's had for a while, you know, that's kind of a upscale boutique hotel in addition to her opening this?
Oh, no, I think she was actually a new owner of, she's never actually made an investment like this before. She has a lot of different properties, and she's an investor in tech, but she's never actually done, and technically they're calling it a bed and breakfast. So she's never done anything like that before, investing in or operating, because it's the early days and launching. I think she's going to have, once tourism comes back some more, she's been wanting to have like I guess it'd be like a management group or something come in to help market and all that stuff with the space. But during COVID, it's just been really difficult because, especially in Texas, there was the closures happening and then fractionally opening again and then closing again, and just been, you know, very tumultuous time, just, you know, filled with a lot of uncertainty. So we just have to play everything by ear. We all have to like adapt by the month kind of thing. We have to adapt all the time. And I feel like that's the mark of a good entrepreneur too, is like being very observant and spotting the opportunity, working quickly and seeing what's the best way to react to something. And yeah, we're all just kind of doing the best that we can. And a version of still having revenue is bringing me in to launch the Founder House concept. So at least there's steady revenue. You know, if the hotel is not full, at least we're here. And I even, every once in a while, I'll help out, you know, if I need to, you know, go make a coffee or help with supplies or something. It's not often, but I like to be helpful. And I think it's really great that she kind of let me come in here and launch a really like unique type of deal. So yeah.
And the interesting thing is that, so you've got 4 others that are in, it's really a month to month kind of situation, rental situation, right? So Founder House is renting to these folks within the hotel, basically. Out of 13 rooms, you've got 4 or 5 that you and others are using. And you, when we talked kind of in the pre-podcast call, you talked a little bit about, the fact that, you know, obviously if you can rent the room, you're going to get paid a lot more. So as an innkeeper, whatever you want to call Ying and that group of folks, the owners, that there's kind of this, I guess, balance between, well, you know, we'd rather have everything booked up as a hotel because we get paid, you know, per room, but we're in a bad, weird situation right now. So, you know, let's go ahead and get some revenue with this, you know, co-living situation. So could you maybe get more folks to live there, but that's not something that they want? Or, I'm just curious. And how much has business kind of come back from the hotel side of things?
Yeah, I think maybe back in May and like when we first launched, the owners definitely wanted to have like a full house of residents, but I think that these things kind of take time too. I think it was helpful to start this with the summer, coming up, or, now summer's ending. But I think that, in the future, since we're just testing this out and it is really like a hotel, I have my own bathroom and stuff, but we have suites that share a bathroom as well with a different price point. But I think that we kind of know this is temporary. It's like a pop-up concept. And at some point, whatever the owners decide that is, tourism will come back and they'll be able to make more money with hotel guests. But for time being, and when we first launched, they wanted to fill it like full of residents. But, we're kind of having to catch people in the middle of their lease, or especially nowadays, if people don't need to be downtown because the office is there or something like that, then really people can work from wherever. So one of the first people that I gave a tour to back when we first launched was a guy from LA, and he loved the space and thought it was really gorgeous and liked that, we're kind of by the lake, but he actually was able to find a place that had like a better trail or something by it, and he was pretty much like right on the water. So I'm thinking, while it's kind of like a cool concept, to live with a bunch of entrepreneurs, it's not for everyone. And I think he was more interested in being able to run around the lake and have access to those trails versus just like a community or something. But yeah, a lot of people are attracted to the concept of it. And I think I've even had people tell me like, y'all should do a reality TV series or something like that. Because, I mean, as y'all may know, like the type of person who wants to start a business, especially like a tech startup, I'll just say they usually have certain personalities, if they're kind of brave enough, or crazy enough to go start some crazy idea that they had and get enough money to go do it or whatever, then it does attract personalities that are like more out there, which I like. We do need to be respectful of others though, like not party too hard, be cognizant of time too. Like I stay up really late, but other founders, like they wake up at 6 a.m., so we need to, we're learning. So, and every new person is like sort of a new flavor to add to the pot, I guess. Because everyone has their own personalities too. So yeah, I think it'd be kind of cool to have like a reality TV series. We don't have anything like that in Austin, and people joke with me about the show Silicon Valley, like I'm Bachman or something like that. But we don't take any cut from the startups. We don't consider them like an investment or anything. Just like a cool community and try to keep it as chill as possible.
Yeah, it sounds like it's probably an interesting group of folks. What about the founder house concept? Are you looking to go beyond this? Is that something that you want to expand on beyond Austin or within Austin? And, what about the idea of not necessarily having a bunch of entrepreneurs co-living or co-lodging or whatever you want to call it? What about this idea of just using space, regardless of who the tenant is, using extra space and extra, I guess, inventory, as we call it, that's out there to have more of this short-term rental sort of approach in what's traditionally been a hotel or we kind of gear our discussions to the smaller independent innkeeper and that sort of thing. But conceptually, it's the same sort of idea that, hey, if you've got excess capacity, just like what you were talking about with restaurants. Okay, if they're closed between lunch and dinner, or don't open until dinner time or whatever, they're just a dinner restaurant, then that space is just sitting. And it's kind of the same concept, but it's because of COVID. If you've got too much capacity right now because people aren't traveling as much, it's out there. So anyway, any ideas on if you have any plans on where you might go with it, and what you might do, whether you stick just to the entrepreneur founder concept or go beyond that?
Yeah, I would love to take this concept with me to other places, to other help other business owners launch. I actually did that with Switch Cowork when we were changing restaurants into co-working spaces during the day. I kind of did some consulting on that, and it's never a cookie cutter situation. The pricing has to be at the right point, the location. I think a lot of people are coming to Austin from New York and California because if you can live anywhere, like you could live in a really beautiful place, like by the trails, or I don't know, you could be on a beach somewhere. So I think that would be really interesting. Yeah, like where are people migrating to now during COVID times? I think they were kind of doing that already, like work from home type of deal, but now it's like forced, like no one can go into the office, and businesses are starting to think like, how can we accommodate employees in a way where they can figure out their own work situation. On my primary company or whatever, this is sort of like a concept I've launched on the side, but my main business is a company I launched also during COVID. But back in March, we put together 10 shelf-stable snacks from local entrepreneurs in Austin. And then we were able to ship them wherever. And it's mostly like small business owners, people who sell in farmers markets. And that's usually how they get a lot of their business. But having a snack company, especially, with a larger trend, direct to consumer, helping farmer market vendors go direct to consumer and making it easy for people to make one purchase and have an expansive impact. They're actually buying from 10 different entrepreneurs. I think, we're starting to see trends where HR departments in particular are having to think about the employees and their work environments. And so the last big order that we had was to ship these little packages, these little kits of snacks to employees and, show their team that they care, because usually employees are going to the office and they get some great coffee and snacks and lunch provided, like Taco Tuesdays are a really big thing here. But now if everyone's so separate, how do you show that you care? Well, I think we're going to start to see businesses sponsoring, these kits or, wanting to buy snacks for people wherever they're, giving them a stipend on their workstation situation, so they can have a screen set up or, so they can be comfortable, the right chairs, that's really important too. And I think that, it would be interesting if we saw that at Founder House too. Like, well, you don't go into the office, you will have to figure out your work situation and you don't have a community to go to in your office, but you have a community here at Founder House. And so, yeah, when I actually posted about Founder House recently in the Austin Startups Facebook group, and I had people who were interested in moving their startup to Austin and, thinking, well, maybe we need, actually more than one suite, we'll put half our team in there or something. And I'm pretty much open to any concept. I think it's all a work in progress, and it's just kind of fun to build stuff in this time when, I've always been in partnerships or biz dev kind of, creative growth roles in early stage companies. And I think that before, if I'm like pitching an idea, there's some pushback because things have been working for a certain way for however long. But nowadays, the crap has hit the fan. And so everyone is starting to think really creatively. And there's not like too crazy of an idea, like we're going to work on different things. We're going to think really differently. And so it's been easier than ever to collaborate with people and just try something new. I love trying new things, whether it's like food, food from the kit, and I love sharing that concept with others. But, well, especially now more than ever, there's nothing familiar about this new world. So I think, yeah, it'd be cool to take this concept to other cities or other locations in Austin, especially as Austin will continue to grow.
So how would you, especially with your entrepreneurial mindset, what you did with Founder House and as well as the ATX kit thing, how would you, if you have to put yourself in the place of a bed and breakfast owner, innkeeper, and certainly there's a whole mix of, depending on where they're located and whatever situation, is going on right now in their locale. But if you were to, let's say you're a bed and breakfast owner, you've got maybe 5 rooms, 7 rooms, something like that, and you're really hurting now because of COVID. Any ideas, whether it's something along, something similar to what you did with Founder House, or just using your entrepreneurial mindset, any thoughts on what they might do to improve their situation? Because like you say, you've got to be nimble, you got to kind of move and change quickly. And if you can't get the traditional guest who's coming to your bed and breakfast, that's there for the travel and the enjoyment or whatever, if that's not sufficient to sustain yourself as an innkeeper, as a business, mm-hmm. any ideas mm-hmm. as to what they might do?
I think doing more of what was probably working in the past, just like more marketing. We can do targeted ads on Facebook and stuff too. We can, target from other cities and say like, oh, the kind of niche targeting we can do is really effective. I feel like making sure that you have amazing photos on Instagram too, and maybe inviting some influencers or whoever to come in. Because the thing is, they have fixed costs, right? So like the longer a room sits empty, the worse it is. Like you can make money any moment, or grow at any moment. I think maybe offering a discounted rate or inviting certain people to come stay. They also take amazing pictures. They talk it up, and you kind of can get really great feedback on even short-term or whatever living situations. If you just ask people what they really like about it, and they'll also post about that on social media. I think word of mouth is really good too. Just like you need to let people know what your situation is, that you'd be open to, why don't you do a staycation, or, if you want to just get away, have a bunch of people are trying to get out of New York right now. Like, why don't you come, stay with us in a safe, clean environment for a month or two, and just kind of think about make sure to read up on the articles and stuff, like what's going on in this day and age. People they're going stir crazy, just being in quarantine. So if you can still quarantine yourself and be safe, there's just a good way to do that, and with whatever you're comfortable with. But make sure that you have the health, that kind of safety standards up to par. And yeah, so those are just some couple of ideas. But just even being upfront and saying, hey, we're open to short term, we're open to month, kind of puts the idea in people's heads, and then they'll circulate the idea to their friends and family. And yeah, just being patient. We've all had to be patient in such a world full of unknowns. So just don't be too hard on yourself. I mean, that's my own personal goal too. I feel like I want to do so much. I'm like an ambitious person, and I'm like, wow, we can take this as far as we want to, but also like be kind to yourself. A strange world. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, I think we've had with a couple either innkeepers or former innkeepers, now consultants or whatever, a couple things just kind of came to mind. One which might, relate, could definitely relate to the situation now, and that is we had Megan Smith, who used to have an inn up in New England, and she does consulting now. And she had one of her clients was like, close to a hospital, and she had them do an outreach to the hospital and found that when the hospital would interview prospective doctors, they wanted to put them in a nice place and also kind of give them a feel for the town, because, okay, it's a smaller town, not everybody's going to be interested, but they wanted to, have a nice space for them to be in. So anyway, I'm just thinking about, something like that. In other words, where might you draw guests from that are not traditional, that, currently are not, you're part of your market, your target market, or who comes to you now. And I mean, it's a good point that sometimes you just have to market more. You have to make yourself more appealing, even though it's the same thing that you're marketing. It's just finding who to market to and also market better. But another example too, maybe more similar to what's going on now with COVID, was, Matt, if you remember Monique Greenwood, she's got like 4 properties. At one time she had just opened up a property in New Orleans when Katrina hit, I believe.
Right.
So she wasn't hit by Katrina, but obviously people aren't going to New Orleans. And I think what she did was she said, okay, well, who needs housing? Well, people who were down here working in this emergency situation or whatever. And I think she was able that now, I think she sold the property later, but was able to, the point is she moved quickly. She was nimble, and she said, all right, where am I going to get guests to come to my property? And I think, all of these are ideas that people, innkeepers now can think of. I don't know. It depends on, like you say, it depends on where they are in situation. And like we've got one client that is in Arkansas, and they're like 4 hours. It's a high-end boutique, sort of smaller inn hotel. And yeah, they're like just close enough to like Dallas and some of these other places, big cities where, like you say, people want to get away, and they're going like gangbusters right now because they're far enough away that, but close enough. And so anyway, interesting to
definitely get to know your neighbors and stuff. You have a hospital network. Obviously UT has a great system here, and being so close to the university as well, we were thinking, maybe we should do some marketing for Founder House to grad students. But even with the student population here, they'll have families that want to come in and support them and stuff like that. We're also like right by the Austin Community College. It's like right across the street. So yeah, and the thing is, it's like the bed and breakfast. So Adina, it's called Adina Luxury Lodging. Adina is also brand new. So it's not even just like Founder House doing, short-term rental, like marketing and stuff for them, but it also, they're launching the business like themselves too, like as a hotel. So, and these things just kind of take time. But I would even say for my marketing background, like just try to do as much marketing on the front end as possible, because the net effect, it'll just grow like way faster, like probably like do way more than you think that you were going to, if that's even possible. And I think it was really helpful to be in the news about it too. The news anchor was calling Founder House the MBA bubble for entrepreneurs. And I think it was like a catchy thing or something for people to see, like to click the link and stuff like that. So And, at the end of the day, I was telling Ying, I was like, well, the thing is, I want us to be able to look back on this time. And then even if Founder House isn't like wildly successful, like we're chugging along, we're learning as we're going. But I just want us to be able to look back and say that we tried to do something, like none of us know what we're in for. We're still in the middle of it and we don't know what's going to happen in the future. But I like the idea, even with me personally, just like, it's really scary to start new things. COVID times or not, but the fact that we're trying, the fact that we're really getting creative and wanting to get resourceful, we're bringing up the community with us and providing a safe place, and that's conducive to working and living together. That's just something that I want in my life anyway, to be able to look back and be proud of something, even when stuff is crazy. And so I just told her I was really grateful, that she started that with me, and that I know it sounds cheesy, but that the news crew came in and kind of like documented it for us. Like it's a stamp in time that we'll never get, March, April, May back. We might have different COVID waves or, whatever people are talking about, like we don't know, but nothing will ever be like that time, like ever again. Just the sheer shock, and how unprepared everybody was. Nobody could prepare for something like that at that time. So I think it's like a really great judge of character too, that she was willing to jump into that with me. To be fair, we didn't really have an option, right? Like it's not like I'm trying to toot my own horn or toot our own horns, but like, what other option did she have? There was an empty hotel. We're going to find ways to fill it, like whatever we want to call it, Founder House. We can call it whatever we want to, but it's just trying.
Our guest for this episode of the Frictionless Innkeeper podcast was Christa Freeland, who is an entrepreneur, former tech venture studio executive, and the manager of the Founder House Adina. Based in Austin, Texas, this inn recently converted into being a co-working and co-living space for entrepreneurs. And for part one of this two-part podcast series, Christa was kind enough to share her insights into how Founder House Adina was able to shift to a completely different business model and much more. And stay tuned for part two, where Christa will be giving us the millennial perspective when it comes to travel. We really hope you enjoyed this episode of the Frictionless Innkeeper podcast, brought to you by the Frictionless Guest app. If you wish to learn more, please visit frictionlessguest.com. Once again, that's frictionlessguest.com.